Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, back home on Dalal Street in yesterday's trading session, we did see a bit of a rally. The Nifty closed above the 10,750 mark. The Sensex jumped over 250 points. The Bank Nifty as well rallied, led by gains in HDFC, and the index ended with gains of more than 200 points. The mid-caps, they saw a sharp recovery in the final hour of trade. Ekta, no big cues coming from the United States, but how do you see trade setup?
Well, we've been pointing out that yesterday actually it turned out to be a session which was quite positive for our markets because the Nifty rallied in the second half. It closed at levels of around 10,770 or thereabout, and the Bank Nifty outperformed. The mid-cap index also closed in the green, and the FIIs continued to sell, but the gross figures were much lower than what we've seen. So the net sell was around 285 odd crores, and the DIIs bought around 611 odd crores. The gross participation from the FIIs indicates that maybe participation as a whole was lower simply because the US markets were shut for July 4th. Now, what we would watch for today is basically follow-on buying, whether people are ready to put in money after the kind of rally that we saw yesterday. And obviously what's happening with stock-specific moves, because despite the index being at 10,700 plus, we have pointed out ad nauseum, Nigel, that the markets are not the same. The markets are not at the same level. There are multiple stocks which are at fresh 52-week lows, and that's basically on your screen. In terms of the number of stocks which are at fresh 52-week lows, this is just an example of it, but the list definitely goes on. So for today, US markets closed, Europe ended marginally higher, and the SGX is currently indicating that it could just about be a little bit of a consolidatory start in the red at this point in time. Brent crude is also at $78 per barrel. So there was some movement which took place on Brent crude, which has now come off a little bit, but it's largely within that range that we've dealt with. So no surprises coming in for Brent crude. The important thing would be basically the tariff implementation, which is going to take effect between China and US with effect July 6th. So that would be an important cue. And I expect maybe the global markets would be on tenterhooks, and whether or not there would be a huge escalation of these trade tariffs, then obviously the repercussions would be much greater. Near-term range 10,550 to 10,800, support seen at around 10,600. The low for the series, I think Manglam was telling me, was 10,590. So maybe that would be an important support to watch out for. Bank Nifty options expiry today as well.
Okay, all right. So we'll keep an eye out on that front. But what about stocks we should be looking at, Ekta?
Well, it is Reliance Industries AGM today, so that is always something which is important for Idea and Bharti also. So that would be something that we'd be watching out for closely. Force Motors, they've come out with their production details for the month of June, so that should come up for you. FIAM Industries, they've signed a technical assistance agreement with Toyo Dind, which is a Japanese company, and it's basically to manufacture bank angle sensors for motorcycles for the Indian market. Future Lifestyle, they bought, I think, stake, 30% stake in Cooves, and that's a website which I use quite regularly. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of potential that website would have after this fund infusion. Biocon's got a EU GMP certification for their biosimilar plant in Bangalore, so that would be a positive for them. CMAC, they've entered into a contract with ONGC, so that would be important. VATech Vabag is going to consider fundraising. Shriram has clarified to the media that it will settle the dues on NCDs through an alternate mechanism. So maybe that should probably assuage some concerns for Shriram. And Titan has given in a quarterly update for Q1 FY19. So maybe the stock would be active on account of that.
Okay, all right, Ekta. Thanks so much for that. Well, time to slip into a short break. Up next, the centre mulls of 25,000 crore to 30,000 crore rupees. Well, the Modi government has decided to hike the MSP, that's the minimum support price, for 14 kharif crops. We spoke to the Agri Secretary on the impact of this on small farmers, the real market price, and the consumption going ahead. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
Mr. Patnaik, I really wanted to know that the first big step, of course, now has been taken. The next, of course, would be the implementation of it. What we understand right now is that there are very limited states, less than 30% farmers who actually benefit from MSP. So what is the plan really with the government to ensure that it is spread out pan-India?
See, I must tell you, MSP traditionally has been used as a signal to the farmers to grow a certain crop in a certain way. And in fact, the biggest example of the success of MSP was witnessed in the last 2 years when the MSP was substantially hiked in respect of the pulses. And the pulse crop, which was prevailing at 17 million tons, rose to 23 million tons. And this particular bumper production was repeated year after year. In fact, there has been a pulse boom because to a great extent the MSP is responsible for this. In the past also, whenever MSP is declared, let's take the example of wheat and paddy. The Kisans have rose to the occasion, and because of a very good procurement mechanism which exists through the Food Corporation of India, both the areas and yield have gone up, and today we have a very good buffer stock in terms of the wheat and paddy, and we are very robust mechanism to ensure that it is distributed through the public distribution system, and it has formed the core of our food security. So I strongly believe that MSP is a good weapon to signal to the farmers to grow crops, and also there are mechanisms in place which ensures that the mechanism can really secure the interest of the farmers.
Sure.
By giving these two examples are only the part of the story, but I am certain now that 23 different crops has been come within the ambit, out of which 14 crops have been earmarked for the Kharif season. It's a big event, and it's a historic event for the agriculture and the farmers of this country.
All right, staying with the MSP announcement, this new MSP mechanism has to be ready by Kharif harvest season, and this may involve a substantial fiscal cost to the centre. Sapna Das filed this report.
Well, we are clearly given to understand that the Finance Ministry is still awaiting for the revised proposal from the Niti Aayog and the Agriculture Ministry as far as the new MSP mechanism is concerned. Having said that, basically the Niti Aayog is the nodal agency for this dialogue between the centre and the states. A couple of schemes have already been under discussion, but nothing has been finalized so far. Also, there is no credible fiscal number that's available yet, simply because the government will wait closer to the harvest scheme to basically finalize the MSP mechanism. Once that is finalized, only then the actual fiscal cost will be known. Plus, that will also depend on the type of crops that are procured by the government. What are the marketable surplus at that point in time? What are the market rates of those commodities? Stuff like that. And how many crops will the government actually go ahead and kind of procure? So, but having said all of this, we are clearly given to understand that the fiscal cost, an estimated cost of around 25 to 30,000 odd crores, is still not ruled out. And mind you that this is the cost only for the centre. The states will also have their own share to bear. Hence, I think the whole thing is now pretty critical on the fact that what is that combination that the centre and the states are able to derive at in terms of working out the mechanism. For example, there is the Bhavanta scheme, there is the market assurance scheme, there is also the private stockist scheme which is back on the table. It could be a combination of all three for all we know. So that modality has yet to be firmed up. Apart from this 25 to 30 odd thousand crore very rough estimate that is coming out in various government quarters as of now, we are also given to understand that probably the Finance Ministry would be comfortable up to a fiscal cost of say around 20 odd thousand crores out of this entire MSP rate hike as well as the MSP mechanism that will have to be worked out. These are the indications we are getting, but of course in the next couple of weeks probably there will be more clarity on this front.
Well, it's the 41st annual general meeting of Reliance Industries today. Chairman Mukesh Ambani is expected to commercially launch broadband services, Jio Fiber, and announce the price plans for its optic fiber business. Shareholders will also vote on the fundraising plan of around 20,000 crore rupees via NCDs. Kritika Saxena joins us with more details on that. Hey Kritika, good morning. Tell us.
Morning, guys. It's going to be an important day, definitely. You know, every year we have been seeing Reliance Industries make a major geo-related launch rather, in the AGM. So this time around, as you were pointing out, we are expecting the launch of Geo services. Now, let me talk about what the market is expecting, and anything different from that is going to be a disappointment. So we're expecting users to get about 100 GB of monthly data for 90 days at 100 Mbps speed. Now, just to put this into perspective, this is FTTH services. So this is much faster, and this would be the best in the industry if you compare it to the broadband services which Bharti Airtel offers. So far, FTTH is only available with BSNL, and FTTH is essentially much faster. It's fiber to the home, so it's wireline broadband, which makes the entire process more seamless, and that will set the footprint for higher services. So what we are understanding is that the pricing is likely to be between 1,000 to 1,500 rupees per month. It'll be either that or a security deposit of 4,500 rupees as a one-time security deposit. Again, this is what is being conjectured at this point in time. They are going to be offering bundle services. So you will get excess data. You will be able to have voice calls through voice over internet protocol, and they will bundle it with their 4G services. So that is going to be significant, and it will change the game for broadband as a whole. So over and above that, we are expecting some clarity with respect to their consumer bets. So they have been saying, and in the annual report, Mukesh Ambani did say that consumer is going to be as big as or slightly bigger than energy and material over the next 1 decade. So any kind of announcement with respect to the retail footprint is going to be important. The fiber footprint and the backbone is already in place. So the consumer projections are going to be important. Any kind of clarity on how many subscribers they have reached for Jio is going to be important. They are likely to cross about 200 million. And lastly, in terms of the announcements and the clearance rather from shareholders, 2 points. Mukesh Ambani's term is going to expire on the 19th of April. So that is likely to be extended for 5 years for the MD position, and shareholders will be voting, as you were again pointing out, on 20,000 crore rupees via NCDs, which is expected to come in this time around in the AGM.
Okay, all right, Kritika, thanks so much for that. And that's the standard disclosure up for you on the screen. Network 18 and TV18, the companies that operate CNBC TV18, are controlled by Independent Media Trust, of which Reliance Industries is the sole beneficiary. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Now, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India has issued regulations mandating that any defaulter or lender who wants his case withdrawn from the NCLT process should do so before bids or expression of interest are sought from outsiders. The new regulations also direct the bankers to go for the best bid in one shot and not allow second and third rankers a chance to outbid the best offer. It also has framed rules whereby home buyers can participate in the resolution process. Lata Venkatesh caught up with the chairman of the bankruptcy board, Mr. Sahu, and Behram Vakil of AZB Partners on these announcements.
First, for the home buyers, because they are the people who have been left high and dry, so to speak, how does the new set of rules make life easy for them?
The IBBI thought that if the number of creditors in that class is less than 10, it should be possible to take them directly in the committee of creditors. But if the number exceeds 10, and more so when they are spread all over the country, it is necessary to provide a mechanism of a authorized representative of their choice.
Okay.
So we thought that the law in fact provides it's ideal that a person who understands the process, he is made an authorized representative.
Okay.
Hence, it was limited to insolvency professionals. But nevertheless, the interim resolution professional, within 3 days of admission, before making a public announcement, he has to identify 3 insolvency professionals who are not his related parties, who are independent of the corporate debtor, and who are willing to act as authorized representative for this class of people, and then put out their names in public announcement. And in public announcement, he would say where further details of these people are available on some website, so that people can exercise, make a choice who is suitable for them. So they have to give this in the claim form. So the claim forms will be scrutinized by the insolvency professional. So the insolvency professional who has got maximum preference from the authorized to be the authorized representative for this class of creditors
will become
interim regional professional will propose that name to adjudicating authority for appointing him as authorized representative.
Okay, let me come to the other issue. it is feared, and it's also happening in several cases, that a defaulter watches to see whether his company is going away from his hands, and then at the nth minute, after all the bidding is over, comes and tries to pay up to the bankers and withdraw his complaint. Are there some rules now giving a deadline within which defaulters have to pay up?
Once an application is filed before admission, it can be withdrawn. Okay. There is absolutely no issue. Even after admission, the new regulations now allow withdrawal before issue of invitation for expression of interest.
Okay, well, SEBI's whole-time member, Jim Hanglingam, has said that the regulator is examining if any mutual funds have become large enough to be considered systematically important entities. Remember, these kind of entities usually attract higher capital requirements. Here's an excerpt of Jim Hanlingam's exclusive conversation with Lata Venkatesh.
Mr. Mahalingam, has the time come to expand the horizon and look at systemically important entities beyond, because we have some very large NBFCs and eventually very large mutual fund companies?
I think yes. See, for the reason that even though like we may treat some of these capital market entities as pass-through vehicles, I think they are, as I mentioned before, they have a tremendous amount of interconnectedness with banks, NBFCs and other entities in the system. So perhaps I think size is going to be a very, very important role that is going to play, as I think Subbu also said. Tomorrow if there is a problem, the problem is going to get reverberated across. So perhaps we need to consider that. Now only thing here is, what do we do? Let's assume we identify some mutual fund as systemically important. Then perhaps we have to think in terms of proportionate regulation. So are the regulatory barriers going to be set higher for such institutions? This is something which we need to really think about.
Well, moving on to some corporate news then. HDFC Chairman Deepak Parekh has written to shareholders highlighting the key achievements in the last financial year. He has also talked about the key opportunities and challenges for the housing finance major. One of the key issues he focuses on is about funding land acquisition by developers. Deepak Parekh says, and I quote, "For the past 12 years, the regulators have not allowed banks and housing finance companies to fund land transactions, yet non-banking financial companies and private equity players are permitted to do so." End quote.
He goes on to add, and I quote, "My key question is if NBFCs are allowed to cross over into activities of housing finance companies, then why can't HFCs be permitted to fund developers to buy land for affordable housing?" End quote. Against this background, HDFC chairman writes, and I quote, "If HFCs of certain threshold size are permitted to fund developers to acquire land for affordable housing, then the current high interest rates are likely to get rationalized. This in turn will help reduce the ultimate cost for a home buyer." End quote.
Okay, all right. In the latest in the NSE co-location case, sources tell us that market regulator SEBI has issued a show cause notice to the exchange and its former employees. Remember, SEBI had begun its probe into the case in May 2017, and sources say the investigation has revealed breach of systems and unfair access to select brokers.